You have a favorite coffee shop you work from. You have a home office. You have an office you work from when you need to meet people or conference rooms you use. You're very much more like a traveler than you are like a permanent resident in a facility.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome to the My Future Business Show. We're back. My name's Rick Nusky and I'm your host. It's just such a wonderful experience to be able to be that person who talks with some amazing people who own some incredible businesses. And today's guest, Frank Cottle, and his business is no different. But before we jump into the nuts and bolts of Frank's business, I'd like everybody to welcome Frank to the show. How are you, Frank?
Hey, just fine, Rick. Just fine, thank you.
Well, look, I don't know what time it is. It's in the afternoon where you are, isn't it?
It's 5 o'clock here in Newport Beach, California.
It's about that time for a bit of a drink, wouldn't you think?
Oh, well, I would hope so.
Now, for everybody who's listening, Frank is the CEO at a business called Alliance Virtual Offices, and they have some 700 plus locations worldwide, and their focus is on flexible working, virtual offices, and another thing called third place working. But before we jump into all of that, Frank, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and what you like to do when you're away from focusing on the workplace?
Oh, gosh. Well, I just got back from 3 weeks of cycling in the Netherlands and Belgium.
Wonderful.
Very, very active cyclist. I'm a very a lifelong surfer and sailor.
Mm-hmm.
So that should resonate well with some of your audience in Australia.
Absolutely.
And mostly I'm focused on my business.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in the service office industry since 1979. Before that, I started my career as a commercial diver,
Mm-hmm.
doing what's called interesting work for some of our federal agencies.
Okay.
And migrated from that to racing yachts.
Oh, wow.
So for about 10 years, I raced yachts and participated in the development of a large yacht brokerage here in California and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So, gosh, I've never had a legitimate job in my life.
It's possibly a good thing.
I think so.
Frank, I think what we need to do, if we're actually focused on startup entrepreneurs, those who have no experience, and existing small to medium-sized businesses, we're going to be talking a lot about virtual offices and that whole movement. I think one of the best places to start is to assume that people don't know what that means. What are virtual offices?
Well, let's start in a broader context. I mentioned that we've been part of the serviced office industry. So let's take that as
Yep.
an example. The serviced office industry combines people, which includes business centers, co-working centers, etc., combines people, place, and technology into a single bundled product that's delivered with a highly flexible service agreement. So basically, it takes the three elements that all companies need to operate, bundles them into a single package, and delivers them with a highly flexible agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And within that industry, there are different, we'll call them brands or models. Let's like the automotive industry. We all know the automotive industry. We could define it and say it takes an engine, a chassis, and a steering wheel, and it moves people.
Mm-hmm.
We take people, place, and technology, and we support businesses. Within our industry, there are different brands. There's the business center brand, co-working, incubators, accelerators, logistics centers, etc. And they each have different brand promises. Just like the automotive industry, a sports car says, hey, you're going to smile when you drive it. Luxury car says you're going to feel pretty good about yourself. A SUV says you can go anywhere. Well, in our industry, a business center takes people, place, and technology and combines it with professional image and services. A co-working center, which is sort of the rage right now, takes those same people, place, and technology and says, hey, we're going to provide business growth or value through a collaborative community. An incubator just adds mentoring to either of those two. An accelerator adds access to capital to an incubator.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have logistics centers, media centers, culinary centers, all variety of shoot-offs of those big four primary products. So a virtual office is a subset of all of those. And it says, for those people who are seeking to establish a presence anywhere in the world,
Mm-hmm.
that aren't sure of how much time they need. Do they need a permanent office, a workstation, a conference room, a day office? They don't know right now, but they do know they need an address. They need a place with which to register and operate their business from legally, functionally, etc. So we have a software as a service system that provides that capability anywhere. So if you wanted, Rick, to open 10 offices in 10 countries in 10 cities in 10 minutes, you can do that through our structure. And we operate very much like Expedia by comparison to a hotel company.
Mm-hmm.
We own and manage the customer relationship globally. And we have wholesale arrangements with our network operators globally with which to provide those services, just like Expedia has with the hotels.
Yep.
So we're very much a model like that. We own a variety of software companies around the world that do that, and obviously have a big network of facilities as well.
So there seems to be like that software side, but also the offline mechanical infrastructure side as well. That's correct.
Absolutely. It's a combination of software as a service plus infrastructure as a service.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, today we look at people that occupy offices not as tenants or even as workstation occupiers like the co-working industry does, but we actually look at them as travelers. I don't know how you're set up down in Adelaide, but you probably move around a little bit. Mm-hmm. You have a favorite coffee shop you work from. You have a home office. You have an office you work from when you need to meet people or conference rooms you use. You're very much more like a traveler than you are like a permanent resident in a facility. And that's the way today is working. The workspace is working all over the world. In fact, there are 1.6 billion mobile workers in the world that work more than 2 days a week outside of their primary office on a permanent basis.
Yeah.
So that sort of indicates the future trend that we're looking at.
So you're finding, from a demographics perspective, millennials and other groups, are you finding that there is more of a preference from one demographic to another, or is it older workers, or how does
Not really. People, you use the term millennials. We're actually focused already on Gen Z,
mm-hmm.
but you use the term millennials as being a groundbreaking group for this. But actually the largest, well, let's take our entire industry's customer base. I'll break that down for you. As an industry, we have about 40,000 facilities worldwide. Those facilities, on average, service 200 companies each. So it's a pretty massive format.
Yeah.
As an industry, we can break our customer base down into 20% increments, approximately 1/5 increments. And the top fifth is actually government.
And that makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah. When you think about it, I mean, what is the one thing that all governmental parties in Australia or the US or the UK or anywhere in the world have to agree on every year? An annual budget.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they love 1-year contracts. Therefore, they love our industry.
Makes good sense, doesn't
it? Government is the big client of ours. Mm-hmm. After that, the Global Fortune 2000 is a huge client, or all listed companies. They have annual budgets as well, but they also have started contracting their employees as opposed to employing them.
Yes.
Or I'll say contracting their workforce is a much better way to term it. And so what do they like? They like liabilities, leases that match the terms of their contracts. And most of their contracts are 1 to 3 year rolling contracts. Historically, leases have been 5, 10, and 20-year contracts.
Large commitments.
So that sector is moving very actively into our industry. After that, you have the original stability section of our industry, really where it started, which is with legal and accounting and financial services professionals. We've been servicing that constituency since the late 60s, early 70s. And that's a huge part of our industry, about 20-25%, depending on the market. Below that, you have regional and local companies, marketing, tech, every imaginable service type of company that's just looking for flexibility. And at the bottom, at the very bottom of this 20% group, you have startups. And if you look at what all companies need, they really need just 3 things to succeed. They need customers, or access to a customer base, a total addressable market, if you will. They need access to capital for growth and operations, and they need flexibility. And if they have flexibility, which is what we provide, at a lower cost than has been provided in the past, then you have a greater chance of success. And I think for your listeners, we're talking about flexibility as a route to success.
And there's another that comes to mind, Frank, is this need to, if you're a startup and you're attempting to build your business from home and you have an active, noisy family in the background, oftentimes removing yourself from your own location and entering one of those types of environments that you provide could also be beneficial.
Well, it's very important, actually. If, let's say you and I were to start a company and we were to use my home address for the company's address, and we were to use your cell phone number for the phone of the company, we could never go to a bank anywhere in the world and get a credit card. Okay? We certainly couldn't use my home address as a registered address because it's not in a location that allows business to be operated. So you're running into all sorts of complexities with registrations, with money laundering issues, with banking. You have to have a legitimate, real business address. And in most companies, you have to have a phone number that matches that. In fact, that's just a new law over in the EU, that if you have a phone number, you actually now have to have a business address that matches it. Okay, so in order to be a registered company. So there's certain things that government requires, that really credibility requires. If you're in business, you have to be in business. And that requires an address and a place from which to do business.
I'm just looking at some of the information here and I think to myself, let's just assume I'm this startup and I'm looking to hire this space, but I know that I need some additional support because I'm good at process X, and I don't really want to concern myself with all the other moving parts like taking phone calls. Do you have services or supports that can help someone like that?
Oh, absolutely. We have live reception service, automated reception services worldwide, and so that part's very easy. But let's take your example a step further. Let's assume that you and I are competitors, and we're competitors in the following degree. Each of us has a startup company, and each of us is going to the same venture capitalist for $1 million, and that capitalist only has $1 million. That venture capitalist only has $1 million, so he has to give it to either you or me. Okay?
Yep.
And I go in there and I say, I need $1 million for this brilliant idea. And you go in there and you say the same thing. And the first thing out of that venture capitalist's mouth is going to be, well, what are you going to do with the money? And I say to that venture capitalist, oh man, well, I'm going to rent an office. I've got to buy some furniture. I have to get some computers. And I have to buy some photocopy equipment. I have to buy some furniture. I have to hire a receptionist. Then after all that, I probably got to get a decorator and make the office real nice and everything. After all that, I'm going to hire some engineers and build a software company.
And then hopefully get a customer.
And the fellow goes, uh-huh. And then you walk in and you say, and he says the same thing. And you say, well, I'm going to get a virtual office and hire some engineers. Who's going to get the money?
Yeah, absolutely.
So 3 things people need: addressable marketplace, access to capital, and flexibility. Who has the most flexibility? I might have a 5-year lease on my space. I have employees. I have to worry about employment contracts. I bought equipment. I have to worry about equipment leases. Mm-hmm. Who has flexibility, you or me? Mm. So if you're going to capitalize the growth of a company, if you're going to start a company, don't just think of the services you might need, but think of the structure you need with which to grow your company long term.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this question of the mechanical offline side about facilities maintenance and maintenance of environmental work health safety and all of those other considerations. So I suspect that you're one step removed from that because of your relationship with those external providers.
Yep. So it's very simple. It's very, very simple. And the other issue that comes up is employment issues and administrative issues. Do you want the CEO of a company focused on hiring and firing clerical, secretarial, administrative staff, worrying about vacations, payroll, health benefits? Maybe somebody's bad. You want to get rid of them, but you're not sure you can because they've been there for a certain amount of months and now they have tenure. Do you want someone doing that, or do you want someone focused on revenue growth?
Yeah, well.
So, it's kind of a rhetorical question, but the reality is, if you're going to grow a business today in this market, first you have to think globally. Every company, a 3-person company, is an international company. They have an offshore supplier and an offshore client of some sort. Every company falls into that category today, or they do very quickly. So you need to think of that, and then you need to think of flexibility. If you think of flexibility first, and then access to capital, and then your addressable marketplace, you'll probably have a greater chance of success than you say, if I sold one sock to all the people in China, I've got a huge addressable marketplace, and I only need $1 million to build a sock factory. Now I'm going to go into business. If you think of flexibility first, you'll probably have a greater chance of success.
Thank you so much for sharing that insight. I'm sitting here just taking all of this in because I've had some personal experiences and this shared space sort of idea where different businesses actually interact on off days throughout a given day of the week. Is that something that you take care of, the coordination between businesses who offer the same option to use the same space?
Yes, we do. We've got a scheduling system that allows what we call in common use of meeting rooms, conference rooms, day offices, private offices, permanent offices, open workspace. That's pretty much the fundamental of our industry, not just our own company. And there are scheduling systems for that. We've got one of the larger ones that manage all of that process. So it's very simple to do. You, like anything, you have a log in and you just say, hey, this is what I need at this point in this date and time, and it's available to you. Or this is where I need it at this date and time, and it's available to you.
This is a very exciting field, and I'd just love to go a little bit into the software side of this business. We're using this case scenario where there's 2 different businesses, and I'm literally sitting in the same spot that somebody else that I don't know will be sitting in that same chair tomorrow. So we log into this interface, and we don't even need to use a quote unquote traditional phone line anymore. It's all VoIP. So I suspect all of your resources like that of that nature inside of this interface. Could you tell us a little bit more
Oh,
about the software?
yes. The way our system works is that most people, take yourself as an example, say, well, I have an office in Adelaide, but I need an office occasionally in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of clients in Sydney, so I want my clients in Sydney to understand that I can give them good services. So you pick a virtual office address in Sydney, and you say, well, I think I should have a Sydney phone number as well. But I don't want it ringing in Sydney. I want it ringing on my mobile.
Yeah, rerouted.
So rerouted. So in our case, we would give you a address, a registered address, a permanent address in Sydney to use on demand, and lay out a phone number to be connected as a second line or a third line into your mobile.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much a very basic thing to do. And then let's go a step further and said, well, I need to have a meeting in Melbourne. You just log into our system and say, oh, I need a 6-person working conference room in Melbourne, and I need it Central Sydney Business District, and a number of locations that pop up. And you would choose one and just book the meeting room for the time that you required it. It's all handled on a single account.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how a large company or any growing company would say, hey, I can manage multiple offices in multiple locations, multiple countries, multiple currencies under a single account. You can see the attraction of that for growing businesses.
Oh, absolutely. It's a wonderful field. I just trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who's looking to get into this area and utilize these services. How long from the moment that I decide, using me again as a case scenario, how long is it from the moment that I decide to do this to the time that I'm up and running and I'm actually walking in this office in Sydney?
Faster than you can get there. How's that?
Wow. That's awesome.
Easy. As I said, you can open an office in our system anywhere in the world
Mm-hmm.
in less than 5 minutes.
That's fantastic.
Now, I'll throw in a caveat. In almost all countries today, there are requirements for fraud prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So, just as if you open a bank account somewhere, you open an office somewhere, if you're going to receive mail and use a registered address somewhere, then you have to have your own corporate documents in order,
Mm-hmm.
and those documents have to be provided to ourselves so that we in turn can open the office legally. That's understood by most companies. If it's not understood or not recognized, then our service department can very easily walk somebody through exactly what they need, exactly how to do that. And we have a full video notary system, so we can take notaries all via video, and that certainly streamlines things as well.
So, there's not just the here you go, here's the product and away you go. That seems to be that personal touch from your organization globally.
Very, very much so. We love technology, and we've been involved in technology for many years, decades now.
Mm-hmm.
But we think that, companies kind of survive or grow based on service.
Yeah.
And service is people. People that know what they're doing, that know how to help, and who take a sort of a members first, which is what we call our customers, a members first mentality. That the most important thing we do every day is help our members to grow their business. And we take that quite seriously. And I think any company in our industry that's good, and there are many of them, do exactly the same. We are a service industry.
There are many moving parts to any organization, and you've just made it a whole heap easier for those who are struggling with these sorts of aspects of their business, and most will. It's wonderful. Frank, when people are looking for you, where's the best place to find you?
I'll give you two places. The best place for business is alliancevirtualoffices.com.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to learn more about our industry in general, just how our industry works, what's going on, different trends and things of that nature, you can go to allwork.space.
Allwork.space.
And that's the That's the industry's largest news and information publication, and it'll tell you all sorts of trending issues and things of that nature as well.
Frank, it's been an absolutely wonderful experience to share some time with you. It's certainly opened up my eyes, and I'm sure those who are listening to the call today, they have some new perspectives on how they can grow their business. So thanks for coming on to the My Future Business Show today.
Oh, my pleasure. Anything we can do to help, always feel free to call.
It's been fun having you on the call with us today. Now click on that big red subscribe button and make sure you leave us a comment, share us with your friends, and join the growing list of leading entrepreneurs who have enjoyed their time on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews.